the regular meeting of the Hubbardston Planning Board. It is 6:30 PM. Planning board meetings are broadcast live and digitally recorded. This meeting is being held both in person and virtually through Microsoft Teams pursuant to Section 20 of the Acts of 2021, allowing public meetings to be conducted remotely so that board and committee members, as well as members of the public, can participate remotely. We do have a quorum of the board present. Absent this evening, we have Ms. Dack and Mr. Holman. Present, we have Mr. Steiger, Mr. Demalia, and Mr. Russell. Moving into, and because we have a quorum in the room, we'll just proceed with regular votes. Unless we have a member join online, we won't need to do roll call votes. So moving down the list, we have public comments. Do we have any public comment online or anything from anybody in the room that is not on the agenda? Is there anybody hiding out online? All right, hearing none, next item is acceptance of the minutes. The minutes have been made available to the planning board members through the drive, and they've also been included in the materials for this evening. So, I would like to do amendments and corrections during discussion. So, would somebody like to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Hearing a first, do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay, and we will pause here for discussion and corrections.
Sorry, there were.
I'd like to make a slight correction on item 5, new business. B and triple I, third line, where it says planner Alec responded that yes, this is something to consider, and that in the bylaw, we have added provisions that effectively stat, it should really be an E at the end, which is state.
Yep.
That maybe you can't be proposed by an applicant who doesn't otherwise own the lot, okay?
Thank you.
And then on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th line, can only be the first instead of FIRS, should be a T immediately thereafter.
Thank
So
you.
just some little spell checks here and there. You may wanna see if the spell checker gets some other things right off the bat, okay? And I apologize for nitpicking, but I did see those because
That's okay.
I was involved in these here.
There's one in every crowd.
I know.
That's good.
I'm usually
I mean,
pretty
we
good.
need-
I read right by it and missed it.
I did too.
So.
Your brain sees what it wants to see.
Yeah.
It's,
I mean, it's not actually a correction on 7B, but I misspoke, it's not my seat that's up, it's actually Erica's seat. So I was optimistic.
You're not,
Are you trying to run away?
No, I'm not up until 2026, it's Erica that's up this year.
okay.
Yeah, I somehow gotten that crossed in my mind. But yeah, I called the town clerk and she was like, I don't know why you pull papers, you're not up yet. Really?
In great anticipation.
But that is what I said at the meeting, it's just what I said was wrong. Any other corrections or comments on the minutes?
None that I can see.
Alright, so I'm gonna
Thank you.
call a vote. And it's not a roll call vote, so we can just vote.
Yeah, aye.
Aye.
And the chair is aye, so the minutes are accepted. So moving down the agenda, we have planners report. Alec, did you wanna just do that as part of 5 and 6, or did you wanna do it as a separate item?
I did have one separate item real quick to touch upon. Some board members may be aware, but in case anyone hasn't heard, the emergency order for hybrid meetings and remote meetings has been extended
Right,
until
that's
June of 2027. So I wanted to make everyone aware that this will remain an option for virtual meeting participation. And the assumption is that the legislature is going to continue working on permanent legislation, allowing it across the Commonwealth. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's worked really well.
So then I guess we're moving into new business. So I'll turn it back over to Alec. We have a couple items here. So this, and I don't wanna jinx this, but this is going to be, I believe, a relatively brief meeting, but there's gonna be a bunch of homework that comes out of it for stuff to review. And there's another item that we're gonna come back to under matters not reasonably anticipated by chair, because we have something else we need to add to our agenda for this month too. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Alec for item 5.
Thank you, Chris. So, as you said, I think this one's going to be pretty quick. We're giving you quite a bit of paperwork to start looking over tonight. As always, when I deliver these to the whole board, they do become public documents. So tonight we kick off the full-fledged and long-awaited review of your site plan review rules and regulations. In your packet, both paper and virtual, you will find a 5-page draft of a rules and regulations document. You will see that it encompasses a variety of sections, but effectively the way that that was first developed is I extracted certain elements from your zoning bylaw. In your packet, you will also find a warrant article. Those are my proposed revisions to your site plan approval zoning bylaw. And the purpose of this exercise is to take the more administrative functions out of the zoning bylaw and put them into a rules and regulations document. The rules and regulations can be amended with 7 days notice of a public hearing at a regularly scheduled board meeting, by which you can discuss whether sections are still pertinent, relevant, revise your submission criteria, the very low-level administrative stuff that tends to clog things up on town meeting floor. The stuff that, people roll their eyes out of, oh, why do we have to talk about why we need a new comma in a sentence on town meeting floor? But it's overall an effective tool, and it allows you to conduct the business of the planning board at a more regular pace. I did have to pull in outside sources to develop the draft rules and regulations, so you'll see that it's much more comprehensive than the sections being removed from the zoning bylaw, but they're important elements that I think belong in there and are necessary for you to be able to conduct business effectively. Going into your public hearing, which I am going to request that you authorize Leanne and I to submit this and the floodplain bylaw as zoning bylaws for annual town meeting. Going forward, what we're going to do is we're going to develop a simple Microsoft form that will go out on Friday. That will allow you and the entire board individually, as you come up with questions, as you review these 4 draft warrant articles, you'll be able to populate those questions right into the form, and then Leanne and I will come prepared to your public hearing date, which is 2 weeks from tomorrow, and we will have the answers to those questions. We'll structure the hearing most effectively to answer your questions, and we'll be able to move through that pretty efficiently. I'm not going to ask you to take any action tonight other than authorizing submission of this article and the floodplain bylaw, but I'll pause there in case anyone has questions, and then I believe Leanne needs feedback on the floodplain bylaw prior to us finalizing the warrant article.
So I have a question from the site plan approval article.
Yep.
There's language for the associate member.
Yep.
Can we make sure that's consistent with what's in the charter and what's in the bylaws?
Yep.
Because I would love to be able to use the associate member in the way that it is related here in this, but I think that's in conflict with other provisions in our rules that say that we can only use the associate member for the purpose of voting on special permits.
Correct.
Okay, we can certainly conduct a review of your other documents, figure out where that's in conflict. I would turn to the board for direction on that. Interestingly enough, there is a piece of state legislature working its way through that would empower associate members to be able to act on any business that would regularly come before the planning board as designated by the chair. In the interim, many legal counsels and myself have taken the approach that if you individually designate the associate member to have that authority, then you can have them act upon it. I myself have not had that provision challenged, but what we can do in the interim is we can prepare your regulations like this, so that when the piece of state legislature comes through, you'll be ready to fully act and use your associate member.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't think anybody on the board would object to having the associate member be able to do things other than special permits. I don't think the associate member would object to that either.
And if I may just make a point, as I just mentioned to you, section 9.8 of the existing zoning bylaw does also indicate the associate member of the planning board shall sit on the board for the purpose of acting on site plan reviews. So there is already wording that has been in existence.
Yeah.
We're not adding anything here, we're just changing the numbering, so
Okay.
there's a precedent for this being on our within our bylaws.
Well, and I guess previously, because we only had site plans in the context of a special permit, that language wouldn't have mattered anyways, because site plans always had to be, site plan reviews always had to be partnered with special permits under our previous rules.
Yeah.
Like there's no such thing as one separate, so. Okay, yeah, I still think it'd be good to look at, because I know the language for the actual appointing authority, I think is different from that. It's the select board that's the appointing authority for the position, so. Okay. Well, thank you for the work on this. Can you give us a little bit more background on the flood plan, item that's being submitted and why we need it?
Yeah, absolutely. So a brief but general overview on floodplain bylaws. So from time to time, FEMA will work on revising the floodplain maps. That's to stay up to date with the most recent available data. Depending on what region you're in, this is more frequent than others. For example, when I was working in Orange, we were working off maps that were 30 years old. While working here with you and in Boxborough, simultaneously, we fall in the same watershed districts that's being reviewed at this current time. The purpose of this bylaw is to stay compliant with the standards set forth by FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Provider. An individual home or property owner has options when it comes to flood insurance. You can go the private route, which is admittedly very expensive. It can be very cost prohibitive at times, but if a town is not up to date with their floodplain bylaws, then a property owner doesn't have the option of going with the federal flood insurance provider. The National Flood Insurance Provider provides fair rates and good coverage, but the town has to stay compliant on their floodplain bylaws. Most recently, I've seen this done in a 7-year cap, but in 2020, Department of Conservation and Recreation at the state level worked with FEMA to develop a model bylaw that communities could then work off of for making their revisions. Leanne has been working hard with your DCR rep to ensure that this bylaw as proposed will be compliant. And in addition to the flood insurance provisions as well, I was actually reminded of this week. For communities that might need disaster relief funding in the future, you are also required to maintain your floodplain bylaws. It's not entirely prohibitive. FEMA can still choose to make an award, and the federal government can still offer disaster relief funds, but they're not required to for communities who fall out of date. The effective date of these maps and the requirement is that you adopt the new model bylaw or version of the model bylaw by July 8th, 2025. And as I said, Leanne's been hard at work with DCR to come up with a compliant bylaw for Hubbardston.
And what's the action, if any, that you need for us to take on this?
Tonight I'm going to be asking you to have us submit the warrant for consideration, and then you'll schedule a public hearing, assumingly either in tandem with your hearings 2 weeks from now or an additional hearing date where it can be fully reviewed.
And just to clarify what you said earlier, you were suggesting a process for us to mark up, that you were gonna be sending to us on Friday?
Yes.
All right, can you repeat the question? You cut out there.
Sorry, you had suggested that, that this is something that is still subject to our markup, and that you were gonna submit a form for us to submit comments on it through Friday, even though we push it through for a draft tonight.
Yes, so you'll still be able to submit questions, to make revisions. I will note with the floodplain bylaw, it is much more formulaic. While I don't believe in bylaws that are one size fits all, the state developed a model bylaw for a reason. And so what Leanne is putting in front of you is substantially, if not entirely, conforming. Any changes that you ask us to make will need to be reviewed by DCR prior to adoption on the town meeting floor.
Okay. So you're looking for a motion from us to put forward the proposed site plan approval article and the flood plan district article as draft articles for the warrant.
That's correct, yes.
Excellent. Would somebody like to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Hearing a first, do we have a second?
I will second that motion.
Hearing a first and a second, any discussion? Awesome, yeah, it's, I believe it's the right thing for us to do because we need to get it on the warrant, and we're still gonna have an opportunity to, massage it and work it within reason. And
Mhm.
there's also the hearing, so it's not a done deal, but we have to vote tonight to move it forward.
I haven't changed all that much, but I do have a couple questions. I emailed it all to you so you could see the floodplain, bylaw. Not much has changed, I've just added what needed to be added. Oh, you can't see her notes in this one. Sorry. Can't see. There's a couple questions I was hoping to get your opinion on, because I just didn't know the answer.
Okay, do you need our opinion on those tonight or in general? Cause we have an open motion, I just wanna call
In
it out.
general, sorry.
Okay, so, calling a vote,
Denalia, aye.
Shire, right?
and the chair is aye, it's accepted. What are the questions, and do you wanna email them to us, or do you want to
They're-
get those from us tonight?
They're in the email I sent out this morning.
I did not see the question.
Okay, it's just a couple comments on whether things are being enforced or not, because they are beyond what the state requires, and I do not know if they're being enforced. So I wanted the board's opinion, because if they're not being enforced, we can remove them.
I'm gonna hazard a guess here that they're probably not being enforced,
Okay,
unless you've heard anything different from Duffy.
okay.
Conservation, to the best of my knowledge, wasn't really doing proactive enforcement. But, I mean, you would know better than I would on that, so,
Yeah, they, not much either, so.
yeah, so it wasn't being enforced from this end, I can tell you that much
Okay.
at least.
So if it's something that the board would like to remove, those items that, in the link that I sent you via email this morning, it has the floodplain administrator's comments, Nate's comments, my comments on it. And you can just tell me, yes, remove this section that's not being enforced, or keep it in and we'll find a way to enforce it.
But the question, I guess, is you're asking for individual opinions here, but then if there's a request for by one of the members
Mm-hmm.
to remove it, it would have to come back to the board for us to then vote on this, you're correct?
Correct,
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's what you will do for the
Yeah,
next
and-
meeting.
Correct.
And we can send individual comments to staff without
Yeah.
violating the open meeting law, we just can't deliberate to each other.
No,
So
exactly, but it's.
We can go one way.
You will take care of notifying us if there is any objection to maintaining an element.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will then discuss and vote on it next time around.
Yes.
We can actually see and comment right on the document, like there's Nate's replies right there.
I would ask that you not comment on the document, cause that would violate open meeting law, so
Yeah,
just
got it.
respond to me.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah, or to Alex form.
Yep,
Okay.
thank you guys so much.
Awesome, so moving on to item 6 under old business, where we have a similar discussion to have about the other 2 warrant article items that are pending, the ADU and the battery energy storage. Alec, did you want to speak to those?
Yeah, so I'll just briefly remind the board, at your last meeting, we discussed the two articles, battery energy storage and, I'm just setting the device real quick. Battery energy storage systems and accessory dwelling units. Francois and I have worked in the past on drafts of the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, and the proposed bylaw does substantially conform with the state's new regulations on accessory dwelling units. As discussed at that time, your bylaw as proposed is a little more unique than the state minimum standards. It allows a larger minimum threshold or a larger maximum threshold for the size of a unit, and it leaves the door open for short-term rentals once the town works through what those regulations will be. Your bylaw does restrict to only one accessory dwelling unit per piece of property, and we are still waiting on the Attorney General's early feedback, as they are offering to review these bylaws in advance of adoption. So ahead of your public hearing, I do expect to get the opinion back from the Attorney General's office, and I'll be able to confirm at that time if it's fully compliant. I will include this in the same Microsoft form for you to be able to ask questions at your discretion. And then additionally, we have the return of your battery energy storage system bylaw. As noted at the last meeting, I'm not proposing substantial revision of the bylaw. I think your bylaw was substantially complete at the time. There were some scrivener's errors from what appeared to be an outdated draft that had maybe been bounced back and forth from legal counsel that made it to town meeting floor, which added to some confusion on the floor. Since then, I have met with one member of the public who at the time was a dissenting vote, and additionally, Nate introduced me just a couple weeks ago to another member of the public who had other concerns and opinions. Ahead of your public hearing, I'm going to circulate this bylaw to both of those individuals to collect direct feedback from them, give them the opportunity to ask their questions ahead of time, and encourage them to attend the public hearing so we can have a robust discussion with them as to why the bylaw is framed as it is, or to consider adding any exemptions if you feel they're necessary. But again, these will both be included in the Microsoft form, so if you don't have any questions tonight and you want more time to thoroughly read them through, you'll be able to do so and then make comments through the Microsoft form.
Thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, so the takeaway from tonight is everybody should take a paper copy of these documents, because this is a homework assignment, so that we don't have to sit here for hours and comb through this in great depth. We're hoping everybody will take the opportunity to take a look through these and provide their comments. And then when we have the public hearing, the way we'll handle that is we'll make this available for everybody ahead of time. If there are specific comments, we'll address them, but otherwise, if somebody wanted to waive the reading of the full draft, I would encourage them to request waiving the reading of the full draft at those public hearings, from a procedural standpoint. Anything else on those? And the public hearings on these, is that our next meeting?
On the.
Yes, that is scheduled for your next meeting.
Yeah. So that's gonna be a pretty full meeting. And, it's gonna be a pretty full meeting.
Would you like me to schedule the public hearings for site plan and floodplain for the first meeting in May?
Yeah, I think we need to in order to make the timeline, right? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
So, moving on and blending this with administrative matters and also blending it with matters not reasonably anticipated by chair. The Open Space Committee reached out with what is their final draft of the open space plan, which has definite implications on some of the stuff we're doing. So, Mark from Open Space would like to also come and present to us. He was hoping for a meeting in April. I don't think he realized that this meeting was today and not next week. So I would propose either that meeting or the first meeting in May, because they've had that going on for a while and they really wanna try to get it wrapped up before town meeting. But it is a meaty document. I've read it, cover to cover a couple times. I was actually on one of the advisory committees for it as the planning board representative. I think they've done an amazing job putting it together. It's, considering it was a a volunteer-led effort, it's of comparable quality to what comes out of the regional planning agencies, if not better. They really have done an amazing job on it. So, yeah, we need to add that to the agenda on, I forwarded the email over to you from Mark to work with him to get something set up for him to come in, cause I think it's important that we do that. And that we also do it on the record and make time for them to let us know, cause it is a big, considering protected lands is, depending upon whose number you look at, between 42 and 47% of the town, it's a big deal, so. Awesome. So, does anybody else have anything under administrative matters or anything else coming up on matters? Oh, other matters not reasonably anticipated by chair. We need to look at some of our delegates to some of these other boards and committees over the next month or two, specifically MRPC. So I am happy doing the role that I'm doing with MRPC. I'm actually on the executive committee there now. So I think we're heading in a good direction with our relationship, so I think it makes sense for me to stay there. But we do need to have an alternate, and an alternate that goes to the meetings consistently. And there's some other regional planning meetings that we need to get people to look at, because we're missing funding opportunities by not having people listen at some of these meetings. Cause like the funding opportunity that paid for downtown to be redone came out of the MJTC meeting, and Dan Galente being like, yeah, I'm interested in that. There's lots of ways for the town to potentially get money out of these. And as far as the time commitment goes, some of the meetings are at weird times, but the level of participation that you need to have is to listen in, and if you hear something that sounds like an opportunity that could benefit the community, to have your ears perk up and take it back to us or just stick your hand up. So, some of these other alternate jobs aren't, for the regional planning organizations, don't necessarily have to be planning board people. So if you just know of other people involved or interested in Hubbardston town government, if they're willing to take it seriously, they can help out with it too. So, doesn't necessarily have to be one of us. And the alternate seat is actually an appointment of the select board, so they ultimately choose who it is. So, anybody else have anything else on that? How
No.
about any public comment from anybody online, and nobody snuck in the room?
Doesn't look like.
Yep. All right, so with that, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I will second.
So hearing a first and second, non-debatable, calling a vote,
Steiger, aye?
Demelia, aye.
and the chair is aye. We are adjourned at 6:58 PM.